Morning. Welcome back to the CL500 channel. I want to talk to you today about why I picked this car. I think I gave a very brief explanation with the first video, and I want to get into it a little more in detail. And it has more to do overall with a different type of mentality about car ownership. It doesn't apply just to the CL500, but to any type of car in considering which one to buy and what you want to get out of it. Let me tell you about my journey and what my thoughts were. I'd been leasing cars for the past 10 or more years, and nothing really fancy. I'm talking basic 4-door, 4-cylinder, basic cars with nothing extravagant on them, and those were averaging about $200 a month for the lease, and no maintenance to worry about other than oil changes, and even some of those had built-in oil changes that covered that. So the only real maintenance was occasional windshield wipers and some fluids in between maintenance visits, and that's it. And the costs are minimal there. Leasing has its place for some people. I wanted a reliable car and didn't have to worry about, so I did that. And in the past few years, I don't know, something in me clicked, aging and looking at things a little differently. And I've always been fascinated by cars. Loved to work on them when I could, which was way back when, many years ago. And so, as my last lease was coming up, I was thinking to myself, well, do I want to really go out and lease another 3 years for a car that I don't like, that doesn't really inspire me, doesn't give me a thrill when I get into it? And I said, no, it's not worth it. I want to get something that makes my blood stir a little bit. And so I started looking at some options, and Mercedes was at the top of the list. There were a few others out there. I was looking at a few makes, but definitely Mercedes has one of them, just because there's a few variables for Mercedes. And I was looking at Infinity and a couple of other brands, and now my mind's like a blank. I really don't even remember them anymore, just because I really drink the Mercedes Kool-Aid, and I'm so focused on it at this point. So something in me said, I don't want to get that 4-cylinder econo car. And on top of it, after the whole pandemic bullshit and all of the way the economics went upside down on cars, where I was looking at a Honda Accord. Nothing fancy, just probably a 2017 Honda Accord EX, top of the line model with all the bells and whistles. I like the design of the 2017 model a little bit more, so I was looking at those, but the prices on those skyrocketed, just as anything else. So new car leases were through the roof, where I was paying $200 a month for a 4-cylinder European car, and if I were to get another lease, I'd be looking at $400 to $500 for the same car. It just doesn't make sense. And the Honda Accords, well, in good condition, people were looking for low mileage, good service history. People were asking for $25,000, $30,000 for those. said to myself, well, for a used car, $25,000-$30,000 isn't a lot, relative scheme of things, but certainly not a bargain by any means. And so then I started looking elsewhere, and back of my mind was the idea of leasing or buying a used SL, a convertible SL, and started researching those. And I actually started my research almost like 2 years in advance of the lease ending. And that's an important component of wanting to buy a used car, I believe. A car that you're going to keep for a long time, especially. But I was looking at SLs and the convertibles, and yeah, there's the romance of those types of cars, and they eventually, some of them do get to classic car status and are appreciating in value. And those are some of the things that I want in a let's call it a forever car that I want to drive for many years. I want a car that has a good chance of appreciating in value. Call it, that's one part of the return on investment and total cost of ownership calculation. And so I looked at SLs, but those are some scary cars, especially when you look at the hydraulic roofs and all of their ghosts and goblins that lurk in those pipes that are right overhead above you in the roofs. And of course they've got their complexities as well. ABC suspensions, they're very cramped and tight. Beautiful design, but the interiors to me were a little plain. And so when you put it all together, plus their values appreciated during the pandemic, and so I ruled out the SL. In addition, it's a two-door, two-seater. So if you've got children or a friend wants to go along, a couple of friends on a ride somewhere, that rules that car out. It's only two people with very limited space for the trunk for any luggage. Just picking someone up at the airport is a challenge in an SL, unless they're coming to visit with very light luggage, like a small, tiny bag. So I ruled that out, and then I noticed the CL, and it checked off a few of the boxes. Two-door as well, so it has a beautiful coupe style, and it has the goblins and the ghosts of some things like the ABC, but it has 4 comfortable seats. If you've got 2 kids, that's a perfect solution, because they can sit back there and it's comfortable. But aside from its styling I think is amazing from the outside view, and it has a lot of different angles that you look at the car and it looks different at every angle, where it's from below or above or side, from far away or close up. And I think those styling cues will go a long way to making this a potential classic car in 10 or 20 years. Some of those elements are the headlamp design, the roof with the pillarless arch windows. That's unique among all cars. The tail lamp design is classic and really goes a long way to showing a style that is hard to find in a 17-year-old car. Aside from that, the interior design is amazing. The dash looks classy, clean, elegant. There are very, very few cars that are 17 years old that have a beautiful design on the interior. something that's hard to find. So with all those elements going for it, plus the fact that the body is made of aluminum, and that'll help with preventing rust and the longevity of the body of the car, I think those are some elements that would tend to indicate this could become a classic car. Do I know for sure? No, I don't. But I didn't buy it because of that. I just think it's another benefit of the car eventually. I liked it because of the way it looks now and the way it feels. That fits me and makes me feel good, and that's all that matters. But some of the other things I wanted to consider are, first of all, its cost. I looked at many of these CLs in my area, and it seems that they fall into two camps. You've got the CL that's owned by younger gentlemen. I've yet to find a woman that owns a CL. I'm sure there are, but the younger gentlemen that own these are very spirited in driving, and typically didn't really maintain their cars very well. They tend to neglect them. They put atrocious looking 20-inch rims, which are not even high quality, don't have the right offset, have stretched tires on them that wear out very quickly and destroy the ride quality. They tend to smoke in the cars, smoke things that used to be illegal in the cars, which leaves a horrendous odor when you're going to test drive their cars. When you ask them for service records, they look at you like you're speaking in a foreign language. It's amazing if they even remembered when they took the car for the last oil change, let alone what oil they put in the car. So there's those guys that neglect the cars, and I could spot them a mile away. I could hear it in their voice just from the initial phone call when I looked in the ads on the Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or any number of sites. And then there's the other type of owner, the one that I wanted to go to see. Is the older grandfather, the old man that has the CL, barely drives it anymore, but cares for it like it's a new car. Garages it, has meticulous records, and you look at the car and it looks pristine. It's clean, it smells good, amazing ride quality. They've invested way too much money in the parts over the years, considering the miles, and that's the car I wanted. Of course, I didn't find any high mileage cars that were all sorted out, just because those people, they don't want to sell their CL, they want to hold on to it. It's their forever car, so those are very rare and hard to find. And so I looked and looked, and over a course of a year I finally found this one. An older gentleman that barely driving it. It had about 55,000 miles for 17 years. That's hardly anything. The service records weren't perfect, but they were there, and I could tell they took care of them. So that's why I picked this car. I picked the silver color just because it stays cleaner on the outside, and I think it's got the highest chance of the classic car status compared to black. The blue, the dark blue that Mercedes made for these was amazing, but very rare with the tan interior. It looks absolutely beautiful, but I only saw one, which was a 2002 model, and it needed a lot of work. Definitely a good candidate to fix up, but it was far away, and I was looking for better value. The other part of the rationale of buying this car is, yes, parts are expensive, some of them. If you're going to go the dealership route, this car makes no sense whatsoever unless you've got a passion for this car and you've got an endless budget. But those things don't go together very well. Very few drivers ever have that. But when I did the math, the long-term budgeting and cost analysis on this car, you know, after researching and learning everything I could about parts and options and repairs and various things to consider, to me this looked like an economy car, like a more cost-effective car that, when you really factor in total cost of ownership over 10, 20 years, this car is an absolute bargain. Some of you may be listening to me and wondering, what is he high out of his mind? How can the Mercedes be a low-cost economy car? Well, the first thing is, when you look at the cost of getting into one of these, if you look hard and you're a shrewd negotiator, you can have them for around, let's say, $10,000 before they start appreciating, and I think I've already seen that they've started to appreciate in value. But if you look, you can find a car under 100,000 miles for about, let's say, $8,000 to $12,000. And that's not a lot nowadays for a car, a basic car, let alone a car that used to be in the neighborhood of about $120,000 in 2006. So $10,000 is a good price, and that's around what I got it for. And I knew it needed some work. The ABC was functional, but has a small issue, and it still stays level, still comfortable and everything, but some of the components were worn out and need to be replaced. So I factored that in, and I decided I'm going to delete the ABC system. The first step will be to delete the springs and the struts and go to coilovers, and those are on the way. Should get to my house in about a week. But the other things are, when you take care of that, as well as the other Achilles heel, which is the PSC pump for the vacuum assist door locks, and those are the two biggest items essentially for this car. When you factor those in, then you've got a pretty rock solid car. But here's, when you consider the cost of replacing the ABC, which I estimate the strut delete is about, let's say, $2,000 to $3,000, depending on how shrewdly you look for the parts and a good shop to do the work. Or if you do it yourself, definitely is a bargain. You can get struts for around, the average price looks like around $1,300 for the whole kit. So you do that, and then you've got rock solid struts for 10 or possibly 20 years. That's an investment that's worthwhile. Now, of course, after you do that, then you've got the old struts, which, if they're functional, you can sell. People buy them, probably could easily sell them for $100 each, possibly more. And that's where the amazing part of this car is. As you delete some parts off of it, that are not needed, you can sell them. So I've got the ABC struts to sell. After that, I'm going to delete the ABC tandem pump. Mine's working, and it was actually replaced around, I believe, 50,000 miles on this car. So it doesn't have a long life on it, about 10,000 miles. And so I'm going to replace that with the common economy $200 standard Mercedes power steering only pump. And then I can sell this PSC pump for, and again, I'm estimating $400 at least, possibly $600. Let's say average $500. So if I sell my old struts for $400 and the power steering pump for, let's say, $400, I'm getting $800. That pays back a big chunk of the new struts. There are very few cars that you can remove parts from and sell for a tidy sum. Then you've got all the rest of the ABC system, which that's going to be my weekend hobby, is just to carefully remove, which is very easy to do when you don't have to worry about or stress about installing another part before the weekend's over. Deleting all the valve blocks and hoses running throughout the car, and even potentially some of the accumulators. Those are worn out, I believe, and are indicating, I don't know if it's coming across the microphone on this video, but right now you see whenever I rev above 1,000 RPM to about 1,500, there's a moaning sound, and that's one of the accumulators that is whining and indicating it's on its way out. So I'm going to check those when I remove them, and if some of them are still strong, I'll sell them for used. Otherwise, I'm assuming I'll throw them out. But the valve blocks at 60,000 miles, those should be in pretty good condition. I may even order some of the kits for those and rebuild them with new rings, and it doesn't look too complicated. And again, without the stress and worry of having to, get them done in time, I could take my time, watch the videos that people provide online, and rebuild those parts and sell them for a lot more. I'll see what they're going for, but there's a few $100, probably I'm going to say around $500, maybe $1,000 in other parts for the ABC system that can be removed and resold. So that's step one for me, and I did that calculation and saw, hey, it's well worth it. I get a newer suspension, which is not as optimal as ABC, and I know that plenty of you may want to comment and start yelling at me for deleting ABC, because that's atrocious and it takes away from the spirit of the car, but it's my car and that's what I want to do. I respect those that want to keep ABC in their systems and willing to invest in that, but that's not me. I don't want to take the car at 80 miles an hour on turns and drive it at 150 on the Autobahn. I'm good with driving it to normal cruising speeds, and for that, coilovers will do just fine. So there's the parts, and then, as I mentioned, I can watch videos of people online repairing just about any major system in this car, because it's similar to many of the other S-Class models, the 4-doors and the SLs. So it's easy to find information about this car. There's a whole ecosystem, a support channel of, first of all, used parts that's available, and that's part of the shrewd shopping experience for this. When you need to buy cars or parts, You can go to Mercedes and buy it at the dealership, but there's quite a few places online that are amazing in terms of their parts availability and the cost. FCP Euro is one of those, which is a phenomenal value when you buy one part, and then the second part, the time you need to replace it, you essentially get your money back on the original or on that new part. So lifetime warranty. There are hardly any cars that, or makes and models that you can get that from an online vendor. And then some other parts on this car are just so simple and easy to replace. Some are complex, but some are amazingly easy. First of all, the oil changes. As I showed in the other previous video a few weeks ago, my daughter changed the oil in this car. And changing the filter is just a walk in the park. Very few makes and models, Honda, Toyota, Lexus, give you that type of simplicity. You've got to jack the car up and get underneath. So that's one of the unique things about some German cars. The top-mounted fuel filter allows you to actually do oil filter changes between oil changes. And what's unique there is, first, the oil filters are extremely cheap at under $10 for the cartridges and the O-rings, which is great, compared to $30 for those traditional metal canister oil filters. So yeah, if my oil change interval is 10,000 miles, I'm going to change the filter at 5,000. Might as well. It's well worth it. It's even better when you consider it's got a lifetime warranty. It doesn't cost me anything to do it. About 5 or 10 minutes of time. The other parts are easy to get and easy to do. One of the Achilles heel parts on this car was the crankshaft position sensor that's behind the engine. It's hard to get to when you first look at it. It looks like a daunting task, but when you take the time and you just look at it and work through it, watch a few videos and read some forums on it, some posts by other people, you realize it's not impossible. There's a few little neat tricks and things that you could do to make it easy, and I did it. It took me half an hour, and it cost about $20 or $30 for that position sensor. Now I don't need to worry about it for maybe another 50 or 100,000 miles. So that gives you peace of mind when owning this car. You can do some of those little things. The other things to consider are there's other costs, transmission fluids and differential fluids, and all those can be done on your own if you want. And if you need a mechanic to help with that, then if you look around and you find a dedicated mechanic that does good work, you can find amazing value at some shops. I've already started to discover some of those. The other part, of course, is, as I mentioned before, the fact that there are so many forums with dedicated thousands of owners that contribute content and materials and their experiences and advice on various repairs and modifications of this car, which not all brands have. And I think Mercedes stands apart from many others just because the unique status on these cars. Many people buy these to be their forever cars. and because of that, you've got a tremendous wealth of information and advice you can get from across the globe, even for a CL500, which is a rare car by its nature, but not so rare that you can never find information about it. So the forums are amazing, and if you like this car, they're great to read and learn about the car and discover new things. So when you factor all that in, and boy, this is turning into a long video, but when you factor in the value of parts that you remove from the car, the options to replace the expensive parts with reliable options like the coilovers, and deleting the various components that are the weaknesses in this car, you see that it's not insurmountable. You can take a very low-cost base car, budget for the maintenance and updates that it needs, and over, let's say, 10 years, it's a bargain compared to any Japanese quality brand. Honda Accord, Lexus, you name it. Those brands will never appreciate in value in the long term. They will never become classic cars. There's just no chance. And the other thing is, some people like Hondas, and that's wonderful. I used to many years ago, but that's the other value in this car, which is, for me at least, I enjoy driving it. It's almost like therapy when I get in this car. So the way I look at it is, if I'm spending, say, a couple $100 a month on an additional item for the car, some part that I'm replacing for the long term, I'll do that any day of the week compared to going to a shrink's office and talking about my problems and why I'm not happy about X, Y, and Z. If I'm down in blue one day and I just want to pick me up, I just jump in my car and go for a drive. And it reinvigorates me. And I know it does that with a lot of other drivers of these cars. Just enjoy being in the car. So that's the story for today. If you're looking for a long-term car, a forever car, something that you can enjoy, and you're one of those people that wants to invest the time, the energy, you have a passion for cars, fixing them yourself, you want to get into the world of car repairs, and willing to learn and buy some tools and shrewdly shop for parts, absolutely a Mercedes makes sense. Find the model that really inspires you and find a good deal on one and go for it. It's well worth it. Life's too short to buy piece of crap, import that is humdrum and doesn't really make your blood boil. Get something you can enjoy, and the return on investment is infinite at that point. So I hope this helps, and if you like the video, if you like the long content, please let me know. If you think I should shut up a little bit and make shorter videos, tell me that as well. Honesty is appreciated in the comments if it's respectful. Constructive criticism, always welcomed. And if you disagree about the ABC system, that's fine. You can, give me your thoughts in the comments as well. But please like, subscribe so I can make more videos like this. And we got a lot more other content coming out real soon with the ABC journey. Want to explain to you what's going in with that, and why I selected the parts and everything else. And that's coming up soon. So thanks a lot. Please share with your friends and have a good one.